hope you're having a great week. Today we are going to be talking about storms. A little different of a topic for real estate, but say you are purchasing your house or you are selling a house and a storm rolls through. Depending on the contract details, what are you liable for? What is your responsibility and what can happen to the contract? I'm dealing with this currently with some of the houses I have under contract right now. And it's going to be very important for you to be able to go through the verbiage and understand your responsibilities and the different options available to both the buyer and the seller. Starting off, in every contract that I put into place, or anything that's written out by Berkshire Hathaway, you're going to have option number 28, which specifically states information about insurance. And it reads as, sellers shall insure the property for fire, wind, hail, explosion, water, or any other cause at no less than replacement cost until closing. Risk of loss or damage to property prior to closing shall be the responsibility of seller. If prior to closing the structure on the property is materially damaged, seller shall immediately notify the purchaser in writing of damage. Purchaser, and at purchaser's choice, may rescind this agreement, at which time purchaser shall be paid the deposit with no further agreement or release required. 2. Take the property subject to the damage, with the seller paying to the purchaser the insurance proceeds and deductible for the replacement of the property or at the price discounted by the cost restoration of the property. Purchaser agrees to insure the property at closing. What does this actually mean for you as a buyer? Well, it gives you different options that you can take advantage of at this point. If a storm rolls through and a tree falls on the roof, a branch goes through a window, a lot of wind like we had this last week started ripping siding off of the house or ripping shingles off, or whatever the case may be. Say you had a gas leak and the stove caught on fire. It's going to be protecting you through that. Remember a few years ago when we had all the rivers flooded and we had hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage from that? Well, this one section is covering you as a buyer on all of that. And it's giving you the ability to escape out of the contract if certain things are not met. One of the biggest things, and usually the very first thing that most people take into consideration, is awesome. Well, you have insurance on the property. Let's have insurance come out and fix, replace all the damages that are needed to be done. And that is part of the renegotiation process. And you're going to be doing a storm damage addendum to purchase agreement in these instances. Because you're bringing in an insurance company to pretty much nullify any damages that came in. As a seller, that means you're going to be paying that, paying the difference there so that you get over the price where your insurance starts to kick in. And you're going to be wanting to be paying attention to how much it's actually going to cost to replace before you start paying into the deductible, because ultimately your insurance might go up because you used it. Insurance is awesome. They love you until you actually need to use them. But as the buyer says, the renegotiation process is going to be great. A lot of times you're going to have to lean on your agent for these instances and get two different quotes on the cost of repair. Your agent is going to have representation, or understanding of different individuals in the market that can give you a quote on the repair costs on that house, and the seller is free to do the same. But the ultimate goal for you is to match the numbers up. Make sure that they're both doing their job, and it's not just the seller's friend that will come do it at a rebated cost. That's not a professional way of redoing it. And if the friend is professional, well, then the insurance company is still going to be in there talking about it, and you want to make sure it's done right. You need a new roof, you want a professional roofer to come and take care of it. You need new windows, get a quote for the replacement of the window and everything. And essentially what you're going to be doing is holding the funds in escrow if the house closes in time, or you write that you're not taking possession of the property until the repairs are made. The challenge with that is sometimes you cannot get the insurance company to show up in the first 2 weeks. If a giant storm hits the area, they are going to hundreds of different houses. So it's going to be important to understand that the contract details are going to be coming into play, because you can't replace a roof over a weekend if the roofing company has already scheduled everything out for the next month. You're going to have to deal with some of that time there. And essentially what I was hitting at is that you're going to be holding some of the funds in escrow, holding back part of the payment to the seller possibly, until the job is completed and signed off on. And usually that's like a time and a half holdback. A different situation that you may come into contact with, and a situation that I'm dealing with right now, didn't necessarily need a storm damage addendum to it, because essentially all that happened was that a branch came down and took out the internet cable that was hanging over, that was being led over to the house and stuff. Well, in our addendum that we're going to write is that we are going to say that this needs to be repaired before purchaser takes over title from seller. In these instances, this is a different way of navigating that, is that sometimes the cost of repair is so small that it's not going to hit the deductible for the insurance to kick in. So you don't want to tell the insurance company that something happened, because as soon as you tell the insurance company that something happened, you start paying more. We all love those situations, and sometimes they won't charge you more, but we all know that once you use something, they tend to consider you a higher risk. Now, in those situations, you kind of do it in the back end. You don't bring insurance into this situation. You say this needs to be fixed before we moved in, and it's going to cost you $50, maybe $100 for you to repair that specific item on the property, quick and easy. And that way the seller is going to be able to protect themselves for when they move into the next property if they're keeping the same insurance, because anytime you make a claim, it's automatically recorded for you. And those are two of the most common situations that take place. The third option that I read in there is that you as the buyer can back out of the contract. It is giving you an escape clause where you can just say, you know what, I no longer want the property due to the damages. Even if you're willing to fix it, blah, 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 I'm backing out. That is always an option for you in a market today. That can be very challenging because there's no promise that you're going to be able to get another property under contract that exactly the same, that does meet most of your requirements because of the shortage in the amount of houses available. But it does allow you to do that, and it gives you that negotiating power on the back end to say, you know what, I'm not taking the house as is with the damage that was incurred. You're going to fix this. This is not how the contract was initially agreed upon. And we're going to have to renegotiate until it's back to the quality of property that I initially wrote up on. And that's kind of the basics of what you can do if you're under contract right now on a house. And if you're looking to buy or sell, be aware of this is a difficulty that can come up. Say it hails, there's a giant blizzard, you have a fire, you have whatever, a wind, which we never have wind in Nebraska. That your legal responsibility in that you can renegotiate everything on a contract at that point, and it is it is your responsibility to take note of any of those damages, because final walkthrough does happen. At final walkthrough, buyer has the ability for final inspection on the property. If you were hiding things from my buyer after a storm, you're going to know, I'm going to tell you, that you hid these material facts that are in the contract that you need to disclose from my buyer. I'm going to bring it to your attention. And now, instead of having a little bit more time to negotiate and talk about it, you have 24 hours to decide what you want to do. Just wanted to let that sink in there a little bit, but there's a lot that goes into these contracts, and having a knowledgeable agent that's going to walk you step by step is going to be very important, especially in times like today and this last weekend that happened. If you have any other questions about the storm damage addendum, or are curious on just throwing some situations my way that are hypothetical, feel free to reach out. My contact information is going to be below, and have a great rest of your week.